Warning: his video contains details of real crime cases. Watch with caution. If you're a fan of true crime investigations and want to follow more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any case. A honeymoon in the crystal-clear waters of Florida ends in a mysterious tragedy, and what seemed like an accident may have been something much darker. You might think it was just a fatality at sea, but the investigation raised disturbing questions about the true cause of Sarah May's death. In the heart of America's Sunshine State, Florida, a story of love and tragedy unfolded that would captivate the nation. Sarah May Johnson, known to friends and family as Sarah, was the epitome of a small-town girl with big dreams. Adopted as an infant by loving couple Tom and Cindy Johnson from the quaint town of Pensacola, Sarah grew up to be a beacon of joy in her community. Her radiant smile could light up any room, masking the internal struggle she faced daily. From a young age, Sarah battled with a serious heart condition known as supraventricular tachycardia. This ailment brought with it bouts of panic attacks and breathing difficulties, shaping Sarah into a resilient yet vulnerable young woman. Despite her health challenges, she approached life with an infectious optimism that drew people to her. Enter Michael Gabriel Thompson, born in the same year as Sarah, 1977. Mike, as he preferred to be called, was a seasoned diver with a charming demeanor and an air of confidence that Sarah found irresistible. Their paths crossed at a local charity event, and it seemed as though fate had finally smiled upon Sarah. Mike's knowledge of marine life and his adventurous spirit complemented Sarah's zest for life, and soon, they were inseparable. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect relationship, unsettling undercurrents began to form. Just days before their wedding, Mike insisted that Sarah increase her life insurance policy and name him as the sole beneficiary. At the time, Sarah saw this as a practical step in their new life together, but in hindsight, it would raise alarming questions. The newlyweds chose the crystal-clear waters of the Florida Keys as the destination for their honeymoon. The vibrant coral reefs and diverse marine life of John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park promised an unforgettable experience for the couple. Little did they know that the beauty of the underwater world would soon be overshadowed by a tragic turn of events. As they prepared for their diving adventure, the contrast between Mike and Sarah's experience levels became apparent. Mike boasted over 50 dives under his belt, while Sarah had only completed a handful in controlled environments. The thought of exploring the open waters both thrilled and terrified her, but with Mike by her side, she felt a sense of security. The morning of their fateful dive dawned bright and clear. The sun glinted off the turquoise waters as Sarah and Mike boarded the dive boat, joining a small group of other enthusiasts. The air was filled with excitement and the salty breeze of anticipation. Sarah, clad in her new wetsuit, listened intently as the dive master gave the safety briefing, her heart racing with a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. As they approached the dive site, a sunken ship that had long ago found its final resting place on the ocean floor, Sarah squeezed Mike's hand. He returned a reassuring smile, his eyes hidden behind his mask. With a final check of their equipment, they plunged into the warm waters of the Gulf, descending into a world of wonder and unknown danger. Little did anyone know that this dive would be Sarah's last, and the events that followed would spark a years-long quest for truth and justice, leaving a community in disbelief and a family shattered. On October 22, 2003, the serene waters off the Florida Keys became the stage for a tragedy that would puzzle investigators for years to come. Sarah and Mike Thompson, just days into their honeymoon, descended into the depths for what was supposed to be an exciting exploration of a historic shipwreck. As they submerged, the underwater world came alive around them. Schools of tropical fish darted between colorful coral formations, and the hulking shadow of the sunken vessel loomed in the distance. For Sarah, a novice diver with only 5 dives in her logbook, the experience was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Approximately 40 feet below the surface, something went terribly wrong. According to Mike's later testimony, Sarah began to show signs of distress. She signaled that she wanted to ascend, her body language betraying panic. What happened next remains a point of contention and mystery. Mike claimed he attempted to assist his wife, but Sarah allegedly pulled away from him, descending deeper instead of following proper emergency procedures. The calm, blue world around them suddenly became a chaotic scene of bubbles and frantic movements. Other divers in the area reported seeing a commotion, but in the underwater environment, details were difficult to discern. As Sarah continued to sink, Mike made a decision that would later be scrutinized by investigators and diving experts alike. He ascended to the surface alone. He emerged, gasping for air, and alerted the boat crew to his wife's distress. A rescue diver immediately entered the water, but precious minutes had already ticked by. When Sarah's body was finally recovered from the ocean floor, she was unresponsive. Despite immediate CPR efforts by the boat crew and paramedics who met them at the shore, Sarah May Thompson was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death was initially ruled as drowning, but the circumstances surrounding her demise raised immediate red flags. The investigation began even before the dive boat returned to port. Law enforcement officers were waiting to question Mike and the other divers who had witnessed the incident. Mike's account of the events seemed inconsistent to some, and his demeanor struck many as unusually calm for a man who had just lost his wife. Detectives soon uncovered unsettling details. Sarah's diving equipment, when examined, was found to be in perfect working order. Her oxygen tank was nearly full, indicating that she hadn't simply run out of air. More alarmingly, she was wearing a weight belt that carried almost twice the amount of weight appropriate for a diver of her size and experience level. This excessive weight would have made it extremely difficult for Sarah to maintain buoyancy or ascend in case of an emergency. As news of the tragedy spread, the tight-knit community of Pensacola was rocked by disbelief and sorrow. Sarah's adopted parents, Tom and Cindy Johnson, were devastated. They had just watched their daughter walk down the aisle, radiant and full of hope for the future. Now, they were planning her funeral. Questions began to swirl. How could a supervised dive in relatively shallow waters go so wrong? Why didn't Mike, an experienced diver, do more to save his wife? And perhaps most disturbingly, why had Sarah's life insurance policy been changed so close to the wedding day? As investigators dug deeper, what initially appeared to be a tragic accident began to take on a more sinister aspect. The case of Sarah May Thompson's death was about to become one of the most complex and controversial investigations in Florida's recent history. As the shock of Sarah Thompson's death reverberated through the community, investigators from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, began to piece together the puzzle surrounding her final moments. What started as a routine accidental death inquiry quickly evolved into a complex investigation that would span months and involve multiple agencies. The first breakthrough came when forensic experts examined Sarah's diving equipment. While the gear itself was functioning correctly, the distribution of weights on her belt raised immediate concerns. Sarah, a petite woman weighing no more than 120 pounds, was carrying nearly 40 pounds of weights, an amount that experienced divers testified was excessive and dangerous for someone of her size and skill level. This discovery led investigators to question whether the weights had been deliberately tampered with prior to the dive. Simultaneously, detectives delved into Mike Thompson's background. They uncovered a man whose charming exterior belied a history of financial troubles and failed relationships. Former girlfriends came forward, describing a pattern of controlling behavior and a fascination with underwater adventures that sometimes bordered on reckless. However, none of this circumstantial evidence could definitively link Mike to Sarah's death. The investigation took another turn when analysts examined the dive computer recovered from Mike's equipment. These sophisticated devices record depth, time, and ascent rates during a dive. The data retrieved told a story that contradicted Mike's initial statement to the police. While he had claimed to have stayed with Sarah until the last possible moment, the computer showed a rapid ascent that began much earlier than he had indicated. This discrepancy cast doubt on Mike's entire account of the incident. As news of these findings leaked to the press, public opinion began to shift. The image of the grieving widower gave way to suspicion of a calculated killer. Yet, the case remained largely circumstantial. Prosecutors needed more concrete evidence if they hoped to bring charges against Mike Thompson. That evidence seemed to materialize in the form of a photograph taken by another diver on the day of the incident. The image, initially overlooked in the chaos following Sarah's death, showed a figure resembling Mike near a slowly sinking body. Experts analyzed the photo, confirming its authenticity and timing. This crucial piece of evidence appeared to contradict Mike's claim that he had tried to save Sarah and had only surfaced when he could no longer help her. With mounting evidence, the FDLE brought in behavioral analysts to build a psychological profile of Mike Thompson. They pointed to his calm demeanor immediately following Sarah's death, his quick action to claim the life insurance payout, and his seemingly rehearsed responses during questioning as indicators of potential premeditation. However, the defense team countered each point. They argued that the weight distribution could have been a tragic mistake made by an inexperienced diver. The dive computer data, they claimed, could be explained by panic and the need to surface quickly for help. As for the photograph, they questioned its clarity and relevance, suggesting it was open to interpretation. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that this case would hinge on technical diving knowledge, forensic evidence, and the interpretation of Mike Thompson's actions before, during, and after that fateful dive. The question remained: was Sarah Thompson the victim of a terrible accident, or had she been deliberately sent to her death in the depths of the Florida Keys? The stage was set for a legal battle that would captivate the nation and leave a community divided. As the investigation into Sarah Thompson's death entered its second year, a series of crucial discoveries shook the case to its core. The turning point came when a team of expert divers, commissioned by the prosecution, conducted a series of reenactments at the original dive site off the Florida Keys. These reenactments, meticulously planned and executed, aimed to test various scenarios of what might have transpired on that fateful day. Divers of similar build and experience level to Sarah were equipped with identical gear, including the controversial weight distribution. The results were startling and deeply troubling. In every simulation where the diver was conscious and in control, they were able to either maintain their position or ascend, even with the excess weight. This finding directly contradicted Mike's account of Sarah panicking and descending rapidly. More disturbingly, when the simulations mimicked the scenario of an unconscious diver, the descent patterns closely matched the eyewitness accounts of Sarah's final moments. Concurrently, forensic analysts made a breakthrough in enhancing the underwater photograph that had previously been deemed inconclusive. Using advanced imaging technology, they were able to clarify the image significantly. The enhanced photo appeared to show Mike in close proximity to Sarah, his hands positioned in a way that experts described as consistent with manipulating diving equipment rather than attempting a rescue. This visual evidence, combined with the reenactment data, painted a chilling picture of potential foul play. Prosecutors now had a compelling narrative. Mike could have disabled Sarah's equipment, held her until she lost consciousness, and then let her sink while he made his ascent. The case took another dramatic turn when a surprise witness came forward. A fellow diver who had been on the boat that day, but had previously been too shocked to speak, finally broke their silence. This witness reported seeing Mike behaving oddly just before the dive, fiddling with Sarah's equipment when she wasn't looking. While not conclusive on its own, this testimony added another layer to the mounting evidence against Mike Thompson. As these new findings came to light, the public's perception of the case shifted dramatically. What had once been seen by some as a tragic accident was now widely viewed as a calculated act. Media coverage intensified, with legal experts and diving professionals weighing in on national news programs. The defense team, however, fought back vigorously. They brought in their own experts who questioned the methodology of the reenactments and the interpretation of the enhanced photograph. They argued that the stress of the situation could have caused Mike to act in ways that seemed suspicious but were, in fact, the result of panic and shock. In a bold move, the defense also attempted to shift focus onto Sarah's medical history. They suggested that her heart condition could have played a role in the incident, potentially causing her to lose consciousness underwater without any foul play involved. This strategy, while potentially effective from a legal standpoint, caused outrage among Sarah's family and supporters, who saw it as an attempt to blame the victim. As the case approached its final stages, the prosecuting attorney, Jennifer Martinez, faced a crucial decision. The evidence, while compelling, was still largely circumstantial. Would it be enough to secure a conviction in a court of law? And more importantly, would it bring justice for Sarah? The stage was set for a trial that would not only determine Mike Thompson's fate, but also test the limits of forensic science and expert testimony in underwater crime investigations. The trial of Michael Thompson for the murder of his wife, Sarah, began on a crisp autumn morning in Tampa, Florida. The courthouse steps were crowded with media personnel, curious onlookers, and supporters from both sides. Inside, the tension was palpable as Judge Robert Hendricks called the court to order. Prosecuting attorney Jennifer Martinez opened with a powerful statement, painting a picture of a calculated murder motivated by greed. She meticulously laid out the evidence: the tampered diving weights, the inconsistencies in Mike's story, the damning photograph, and the testimony of expert witnesses. Martinez argued that Mike had planned the murder to collect on Sarah's substantial life insurance policy, which he had insisted on increasing just days before their wedding. The defense, led by renowned criminal attorney David Hoffman, countered with an equally compelling narrative. Hoffman portrayed Mike as a grieving widower, wrongly accused and victimized by circumstantial evidence and public hysteria. He emphasized Sarah's pre-existing heart condition and the inherent risks of scuba diving, suggesting that a tragic accident had been twisted into a murder accusation. Over the next 3 weeks, the courtroom became a battleground of expert testimonies. Diving professionals, forensic experts, and medical specialists were called to the stand by both sides. The jury listened intently as complex diving procedures were explained and debated. The enhanced underwater photograph became a central point of contention, with both sides bringing in image analysis experts to support their interpretation. One of the most emotional moments of the trial came when Sarah's adoptive parents, Tom and Cindy Johnson, took the stand. Their testimony painted a vivid picture of Sarah's life, her struggles with her heart condition, and her joy in finding love with Mike. However, they also spoke of their growing unease about Mike's behavior in the days leading up to the honeymoon. As the trial progressed, public opinion remained divided. Outside the courthouse, supporters of both Sarah and Mike held vigils and demonstrations. The case had touched a nerve, raising questions about trust, betrayal, and the nature of justice in cases with limited physical evidence. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. In a moment of high drama, Michael Thompson was found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom erupted in a mix of sobs, gasps, and muted cheers. Judge Hendricks sentenced Mike to 25 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The verdict brought a sense of closure to Sarah's family and friends, but the case was far from over. Mike's defense team immediately filed an appeal, citing what they claimed were procedural errors and the largely circumstantial nature of the evidence. In the years following the trial, the case continued to captivate the public imagination. Books were written, documentaries were produced, and the story was even adapted into a made-for-TV movie. Legal experts debated the verdict, with some praising it as justice served and others criticizing it as a conviction based on inconclusive evidence. For Sarah's family, the guilty verdict brought a measure of peace, but the pain of their loss remained. They established a foundation in Sarah's name, dedicated to promoting diving safety and supporting victims of domestic violence. As for Mike Thompson, he maintained his innocence from behind bars, granting occasional interviews to journalists and true crime writers. His case became a rallying point for those who believed in his innocence and a cautionary tale for those who saw him as a calculating killer. The story of Sarah and Mike Thompson continues to raise questions about love, trust, and the complexities of seeking justice in cases where the truth lies hidden beneath the surface. As the years passed following Michael Thompson's conviction, the case of Sarah May Thompson's death continued to resonate within legal circles, the diving community, and the public consciousness. The story evolved from a shocking crime to a cautionary tale with far-reaching implications. In 2015, 10 years after the initial verdict, Mike's legal team succeeded in securing a review of the case. New advancements in forensic technology allowed for a more detailed analysis of the underwater photograph that had been crucial to his conviction. While the re-examination didn't exonerate Mike, it did raise enough questions to fuel ongoing debate about the reliability of photographic evidence in underwater crime scenes. The diving industry, deeply shaken by the case, implemented stricter safety protocols and partner checks. Dive shops across the country began offering more comprehensive training for couples and emphasizing the importance of diving within one skill level. The Sarah May Thompson Act, passed in Florida in 2018, mandated additional safety measures for novice divers in open water environments. Sarah's parents, Tom and Cindy Johnson, channeled their grief into advocacy. The foundation they established in Sarah's name grew into a nationally recognized organization. It not only promoted diving safety, but also funded research into cardiac health for athletes and adventurers. Their annual Dive for Sarah event became a popular charity function, raising awareness about water safety and domestic violence prevention. May Thompson's life behind bars became a subject of fascination for true crime enthusiasts. He maintained a low profile, declining most interview requests, but occasionally corresponded with journalists and legal scholars. His case was frequently cited in law schools as an example of the challenges in prosecuting crimes with limited physical evidence. In 2020, a comprehensive documentary series revisited the case, presenting new interviews and insights. It featured testimonies from jurors, exploring the weight of their decision and how it had affected their lives. The series also delved into the lives of the other divers present that day, revealing the long-lasting trauma of witnessing such a tragic event. The scientific community continued to study the physiological effects of diving on individuals with heart conditions similar to Sarah's. This research led to improved guidelines for assessing diving fitness, potentially preventing future tragedies. As the 20th anniversary of Sarah's death approached in 2023, public interest in the case resurged. Legal experts debated whether advancements in underwater forensics and diving technology would have led to a different outcome if the trial were held today. Some argued that modern equipment and procedures would have provided clearer evidence, while others maintained that the fundamental challenges of investigating underwater incidents remained. The Thompson case left an indelible mark on the intersection of law, science, and public perception. It highlighted the complexities of underwater crime scenes, the power and limitations of circumstantial evidence, and the enduring impact of a tragedy on a community. For those closely involved, the families, the investigators, the legal teams, and the diving experts, the case was more than a sensational story. It was a somber reminder of lives forever changed by a single day's events in the waters off the Florida Keys. As time passed, the case of Sarah May Thompson became more than just a true crime narrative. It evolved into a multifaceted legacy, a catalyst for safety reforms, a case study in forensic investigation, and a poignant reminder of the fragility of trust and the enduring quest for truth and justice.